My name is Lena. I am 33 years old, and for a long time, my life moved in quiet circles. Every weekday looked almost exactly the same. I arrived at the office at 9, turned on my computer, poured myself a cup of coffee, and sat in silence. The small company where I worked was not loud or exciting. It was safe, predictable, and invisible, much like me. The office had its own rhythm. Fingers tapped softly on keyboards. Printers hummed in the background. People spoke only when necessary. Most days passed without any strong emotion. I did my job well, went home, cooked simple meals, and spent my evenings alone with books or quiet thoughts. I told myself this was enough. I told myself I liked the calm. Then one morning, everything shifted. A man walked into the office with a calm confidence that immediately changed the air. His name was Jonathan, the new manager. He was around 40, well-dressed but not intimidating, with a gentle voice and steady eyes. When he greeted the team, he smiled in a way that felt genuine, not practiced. People straightened in their chairs. Conversations felt lighter. Even the silence seemed different. At first, he was just my boss. I said hello politely and returned to my work. But over the following days, small things began to happen. Jonathan asked how my morning was going and actually waited for the answer. He noticed the book on my desk and asked if I enjoyed it. He remembered that I liked my coffee without sugar. No one had ever noticed such details about me before. When Jonathan spoke to me, I felt a strange warmth in my chest, something unfamiliar and unsettling. I laughed more easily. I became aware of my own voice, my posture, my presence. These interactions were simple, harmless, almost meaningless to anyone watching. But inside me, something had begun to move. I told myself it was nothing. He was just kind. Just attentive. Just doing his job well. Still, at night, when the apartment was quiet and the lights were low, my thoughts returned to him. I remembered the sound of his voice, the way he said my name, the feeling of being seen. I lay awake longer than usual, wondering why these moments stayed with me. I did not yet call it love. I did not even call it desire. But something had changed. And I could feel it growing quietly in the dark. At first, I refused to name what was happening inside me. I told myself it was simple admiration, nothing more. Jonathan was kind to everyone, after all. But day by day, the truth became harder to ignore. My heart reacted to him before my mind could stop it. When he walked past my desk, my breathing changed. When he said my name, my chest felt tight, warm, awake. I became aware of small moments I had never noticed before. The way my hands felt unsteady when he stood close. The way my heart beat faster when our eyes met for just a second too long. Once, he leaned over my desk to help me fix a problem on my computer. Our fingers touched by accident. It lasted no more than a moment, but it sent a rush through me that made my face burn. "Are you okay, Lena?" he asked softly. "Yes," I replied quickly, though I was anything but okay. That was when I understood. I was falling in love. Quietly. Hopelessly. The realization frightened me. I tried to pull back, to keep my answers short, my smiles polite. I told myself to focus on work, to remember that he was my boss, nothing more. But feelings do not disappear simply because we ask them to. They wait. They grow. Then one morning, as Jonathan reached for a file beside me, I noticed something that made my world stop. A thin gold ring shone on his left hand. My eyes fixed on it, unwilling to look away. He was married. The office noise faded. My thoughts collapsed into a single heavy truth. I felt foolish, embarrassed, and painfully small. How could I allow myself to feel this way? How could I forget such an obvious boundary? I promised myself I would stop. I would forget him. I would return to my quiet, controlled life. But my heart did not listen. It continued to ache in silence. One Sunday, needing air and distance, I went to the park alone. I sat on a bench and closed my eyes, hoping the cool breeze would calm my thoughts. Then I heard a familiar laugh. I opened my eyes. Jonathan stood a short distance away, smiling warmly. Beside him was a woman holding his arm. 2 children ran toward them, laughing. Jonathan lifted the little girl and kissed her head. They looked like a picture of happiness, complete and real. I froze. He did not see me, and I was grateful. I turned my face away and stared at the trees as my chest tightened with quiet pain. In that moment, I understood something clearly for the first time. Jonathan did not belong to me. He belonged to them. After that Sunday in the park, returning to work felt heavier than before. I carried the image of Jonathan with his family inside my chest like a quiet wound. I forced myself to arrive early, to leave late, to stay focused on numbers and emails instead of emotions. I answered Jonathan politely but briefly, careful not to linger, careful not to give my heart any reason to hope. But distance is difficult when 2 people share the same space. Jonathan noticed the change immediately. One morning, he stopped beside my desk longer than usual. "You've been very quiet lately," he said gently. "Are you feeling all right?" I nodded, keeping my eyes on the screen. "I'm fine." He did not look convinced. Despite my efforts, he continued to notice me. He thanked me for small things, praised my work during meetings, and once said quietly, "You're very reliable, Lena. People don't say it enough, but you matter here." That word stayed with me. Matter. I told myself it meant nothing. I reminded myself that kindness did not equal love. And yet, a fragile hope I did not want continued to breathe somewhere deep inside me. One evening, we were the last 2 people in the office. The rain tapped softly against the windows, filling the silence with a steady rhythm. Jonathan stood near my desk, hesitating as if choosing his words carefully. "Lena," he said, "you're important to me." My heart reacted before my mind could stop it. I held my breath, afraid that if I spoke, everything I had been hiding would spill out. He continued, his voice low and sincere. "I need to be honest with you. I'm married. I love my family. I would never do anything to hurt them." I nodded slowly, already knowing what was coming and still unprepared to hear it. "But," he added quietly, "that doesn't mean I feel nothing. You make me feel seen. You remind me of parts of myself I don't often share." Tears burned behind my eyes. This was the truth I had feared and secretly imagined. "I feel it too," I said softly. "But knowing it doesn't make it right." He looked at me with a sadness that mirrored my own. "I don't want to cross a line," he said. "I don't want to become someone I wouldn't respect." Neither did I. We stood there in silence, surrounded by unsaid words. There was no touching, no promises, no dramatic confession. Just 2 people acknowledging something real and choosing not to destroy what already existed. After that night, everything changed and stayed the same at once. We returned to our roles, our professional distance, our careful silence. Sometimes our eyes met across the room, and I saw understanding there, and loss. We had chosen restraint over regret. And although it hurt, I knew it was the only choice that allowed us both to remain whole. After that conversation, an invisible line appeared between Jonathan and me. We never spoke about feelings again. At work, we remained polite, professional, careful. He greeted me in the mornings with the same calm voice, but he no longer lingered by my desk. I answered his questions clearly and briefly, never more than necessary. From the outside, nothing seemed different. But inside, everything had changed. Sometimes our eyes met across the room. In those brief moments, there was no warmth, no expectation, only a quiet sadness we both understood. We had chosen distance, and distance has its own kind of pain. Silence followed us through meetings, through hallways, through long afternoons. It was not an angry silence. It was respectful, heavy, final. At night, I began to think deeply about love. Not the kind shown in movies or written in poems, but the kind that stays hidden, the kind that asks for nothing and still hurts. I realized that loving someone who cannot be yours is like holding water in your hands. The tighter you close your fingers, the faster it slips away. You cannot force it to stay. You can only let it fall. That understanding did not come easily. There were nights when sleep refused to come. I lay awake replaying every conversation, every look, every moment when I almost believed something more was possible. In the mornings, I woke with a strange emptiness in my chest, as if something had quietly left without saying goodbye. I went through my routines slowly, unsure of myself, unsure of what came next. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to stop hoping. I made a decision, not loudly, not dramatically, but firmly. I would not wait. I would not imagine a future that was never offered. I would not measure my days by his presence. Letting go was not a single act. It was something I had to do again and again. Each time my thoughts returned to him, I gently pulled them back. Each time my heart tried to reopen the door, I closed it with patience, not anger. Slowly, something else began to happen. I started noticing myself again. I stayed longer in bookstores. I walked without music and listened to my own breathing. I remembered who I was before my heart woke up. Not empty, but quiet. Not broken, but whole. The pain did not disappear overnight. But it softened. It made space for something calmer, stronger. Acceptance. I understood then that growth often comes from loss. That loving someone does not always mean holding on. Sometimes, it means stepping back and choosing yourself. Time did not erase everything, but it changed the weight of what I carried. Slowly, almost quietly, I began to live again. I noticed it first in small ways. I smiled without forcing myself. I breathed more deeply when I walked outside. I woke up in the mornings without the heavy pressure in my chest that once greeted me before my eyes even opened. I started doing things just for myself. I cooked meals I enjoyed, not because anyone expected them. I spent evenings reading or walking through the city, letting my thoughts come and go without judging them. For the first time in a long while, I felt present in my own life. Jonathan was still there. We still worked in the same office. We still passed each other in the hallway and exchanged polite greetings. But he no longer lived in every corner of my heart. When I saw him, I felt a quiet familiarity instead of longing. There was no bitterness, no regret, only a calm understanding of what had been and what could never be. I realized that love does not always arrive to stay. Sometimes it comes only to wake us up. Jonathan had entered my life and shown me something important. He showed me that my heart was capable of feeling deeply. He reminded me that I could be seen, valued, and emotionally alive. And that lesson remained, even after the feeling itself had faded. I no longer asked myself why I had fallen in love with him. The question had lost its power. Love does not always need a reason. Sometimes it simply happens, quietly and honestly, even when it has no future. I did not regret loving him. Regret would have meant wishing my heart had stayed closed. And I was grateful that it had opened, even if only for a while. Feeling something real, even something painful, was better than feeling nothing at all. One evening, as I walked home under a soft sky, I understood something clearly. Some love stories are not meant to be lived. They are meant to be felt, to pass through us, to leave us changed. They do not end with holding hands or shared homes, but with growth, self-respect, and peace. Jonathan belonged to his world, and I belonged to mine. And for the first time, that truth did not hurt. It felt right. As I unlocked my door and stepped into my quiet apartment, I felt a gentle warmth inside me. Not the excitement of longing, not the ache of loss, but something steadier. Acceptance. I closed the door, smiled softly, and knew that my heart was no longer waiting. It was simply living.